Hi, welcome to I Tried to Eat My Phone. I am Karen Jaworski, and I am joined today by my very, very, very dear friend, Matt Donahoe. And Matt has two kids, a boy and a girl. And we have kind of been through the parenting dregs together a little bit at times and discussed this before, but we're going to talk about parenting. I One of the first things I think about as a parent, like, and asking other parents questions about how they do it. What's a shining moment that you've had where you're like, success, like I did something right, like whether something your kid did or whatever, that you were like, all right, winning.
It's funny that you asked that. It might not be the exact uh, flavor of what you were where your question was headed, but I actually just had one of those moments, and I was thinking. Um, so let me back up here a little bit, and so during the lockdown and the pandemic, my ex-wife and I have decided to first of all split the weeks. So since I'm working from home and she's working from home, it ends up I have a whole lot more time and availability to be with the kids. We wanted to take advantage of that and be as close to as 50-50 a split as we could,
Mhm.
which we're not able to do when we're both working. So that has actually been one of the bright spots that has come out of this. But it's not always a bright spot because at this point, 8 months into it, everyone is pulling their hair out, and it's not just in our family. Everyone you talk to, it's so funny. I've noticed probably a couple months ago when you start asking people, "Hey, how's the homeschooling going?" People are no longer interested in being polite. It's not like, "Oh yeah, fine, everything's fine." It's like it's no longer a "how you doing" question. It stinks. I hate it. My
Yeah.
kids are awful. This isn't working. This is garbage. It's just not working. It's hard, and I think that's where we are.
Yeah.
Uh, 3/4 of a year, and it's hard. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we've done is it used to be the second half of the week the kids, both Clyde and Maeve, would come over and stay with me, and they're just at each other's throats. And the pandemic, I think that's natural for a brother and sister that are 2 years
Yeah.
apart, but the pandemic has concentrated everything. So, and it's completely understandable.
Yeah.
Everyone is sick of everyone's ass these
Well,
days.
yeah, I feel like it's kind of put everything into a superlative. Like, it's like whatever struggles we had before as parents and as people, it just has moved it to like the the worst and the best. Like,
A buddy of mine said something funny that made me laugh. It's um, things are so much worse these days, in part because everyone in their own mind has escalated their personal lives to a Netflix original in some way, shape, or form. So
that's
we're
that's
so
great.
plugged into to our shows and our series that uh, that regular life is just boring in comparison.
I think that's a good point. That's my mom and I always talk about, when as you get older, and I could go into a whole scientific reason why this happens, but that certain aspects of your personality get amplified, I mean, when you get older. And my mom's like, I just want to apologize in advance
Right.
because I'm like,
That's
okay, thanks. Like,
I think I used to refer to that when you and I were more drinking buddies, and late night on a 3 a.m. at the end of a party or something. I probably said something like, "Oh, can you imagine me being a 60-year-old? It gives even less of a crap."
yeah. Little
It
window
also
into
reminds me of
that.
yeah. It reminds me of that Bill Cosby joke when he was talking himself. He's talking about,
Yes.
and apologize for bringing
No,
up
no, no, no. I used to listen to all those when I was a kid. Yeah.
but when he was talking about cocaine, and he said, well, a lot of people say cocaine just amplifies the personality that's already there, and he would stop and look and say, yeah, but what if you're an asshole? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do remember that. Yeah.
The same could be said
Uh,
about parenting. Anyway, back on
yeah.
top.
No, no, no. So, but do you feel like I think I've said this to a few people during these, that one of my favorite qualities about people is humility. Like when people are like, you know what, I I'm not doing a great job and it's okay. So and I think it's a good quality as a parent to feel like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, where do you feel like you have stumbled with,
So
not failed, but like, where have you kind of stumbled as a
I
parent? Like,
I think the secret is that admission, what you just said, is part of being a good parent. Is
mm,
that humility. Where have I failed and stumbled, and what am I not
yeah.
most proud of is probably the same things that I hold against my own parents.
Mm,
With frustrations, sometimes not, um, you know, being as calm as we've been taught and we know we should be. Just losing your temper. And
mm,
although I nothing even in the same universe as my family of origin. But yeah, I yell at my kids on a weekly basis, and those aren't the proudest moments. There are better ways to reinforce, and to um, handle situations, especially uh, emotional intelligence related stuff. But when someone's being an F and A hole in front of you, you sometimes just want to tell them to stop being an F and A hole. um, so yeah, I think that, but also along the humility part, that, believe it or not, probably I would say is one of my superpowers as a dad. Is I am real transparent um,
mhm,
about that. If I don't know the answer to something, I tell them. I tell them, how I'm feeling, to try to encourage them to be in touch with their emotions. One of the things um, that it seems weird to say as a parent, but I say pretty regularly to my kids is, I'm not sure if you meant to hurt my feelings with what you just said, but you
mm,
did. Can we
mm.
talk about that? And so, um,
That's a great way to pose that.
yeah, yeah, and it's funny. It's funny when you get a window into what your kids think of you, because I'm sure you're the same way. As we have this image in our minds of the type of parents that we want to be, and that we are, and
Mhm.
of course I'm the cool dad in my mind. um, but at the same time, I'm also pretty darn strict. Um, so Maeve does this thing. Maeve's the comedian, and she'll do this thing, and she'll do dad, and so it's her impersonation. And the hard part of it is that it's not for 5 minutes. It's usually for the better part of a night. She goes. So you talk about one of the times when I lose my temper. By 3.5 hours of her imitating me, totally want to tell her where to shove it. I'm quivering in the corner, sucking my thumb, saying, "I don't know if you hurt my feelings, but you hurt my feelings."
Well, imitation is the highest form of flattery, right? Isn't that
Flattery.
the
This is not flattery, but and there's some funny phrases that they pick up on, and so one of the more flattering things that she works into her act is
Routine.
yeah, I'm always her shtick. I'm always and she's workshopping it out. I'm always, she'll stop and she'll say, "Do you have any questions?" And I say that 4 or 5 times a night. Like, do you have any questions about that? When there's something difficult on TV, you
Yeah.
know, if I'm letting them watch something that I probably shouldn't let them watch, I'll be like, okay, do you have any questions about that? And so Maeve has picked up on that, and I was thinking about that the other day, and that's, I mean, heck, that's not that's there are a lot worse things that I could be known for
Right,
than
right.
things.
Then a follow-up question. Yeah, I think that's well, I kind of going along with that train of thought, like, how do you feel like your kids have influenced you as a person? Like, what has changed about you after becoming a parent?
That is a very good question. And I think I'll address the elephant in the room. When you have kids, and this is, you mentioned in the beginning, we are very good friends and have been friends very close for 20 years, and I've been very close with your husband for 20 years,
Mhm.
and our interactions um, drastically changed when we had kids.
Mhm.
I will say that John was your husband John was the first of my close friends to become a parent, really. And I remember the night it happened, and
Mhm.
my world changed. It was at the Black Crows
I
concert.
know, I was gonna say you were literally there when he got the
Yeah,
call.
yeah,
So
yeah. So you let him go to the show with me, and then he got the call. I can't remember. I was probably before.
I waited as long as I could. I mean, I remember they were like, your water broke, and so, and I was like, I'm gonna just wait a little bit longer to call my husband because he's at a concert.
Is there any way I can make it to set two?
Yeah, he still jokes now. He's like, well, she wasn't born until like 1 the next day, so I could have stayed.
Yeah. So yeah, and I forget. I think I drove, and he had to
Yes.
get a ride home, and yeah,
That
it was
was why
before
I waited, because I
Uber.
was like, did they all take one car? Like, I don't want to make everyone come back.
So
I'm like,
the
they're
story of the
like,
story.
you're in active labor. You should probably call your husband. It's like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I think,
All the things that I love to do before parenting, they don't even appeal to me now.
mm,
Um, I don't go to concerts anymore, even in normal times. I don't drink my face off.
mhm,
I don't do drugs. I get joy from other things. So
yeah,
the way I was gonna say it was, I'm a whole lot less cool than I was, or at least as cool as I thought I was in my mind. But I have as much fun. My idea of fun has changed,
mhm,
and I get joy elsewhere.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't put a lot of credence in the idea that I lost anything becoming a parent. It's been the most amazing um, experience for me. So
yeah.
you said something that reminded me really of why I chose parenting to talk about, but more having to do with fear. So
Mm,
um, one of the things, and it hasn't happened that often lately, but whenever I meet someone who's going to be new parents, one of the things, if it gets to a serious conversation that I talk about to them is, be ready to be worried all the time. You're just
mhm,
worried. You're worried about, you know, your life shifts from you worried about your stuff,
mhm,
and what you're doing is you just worry about things out of your control, and how that's going to impact your kids.
yeah.
And you worry about the job you're doing. You're worried about, like, when I lose my temper or I swear in front of my kids, is that going to have a lasting impact? Things like that. But um, something, my oldest is 10 years old now, and this is something I noticed when he was a baby, and it's just gotten more and more um, prevalent. And I was laughing now that we're locked up inside together all the time. I notice it even more. Um, but the things I worry most about my son are the things that remind me most of myself.
Hmm.
And that's going to take some explaining, and I'll backtrack. But I also notice that um, with my ex-wife and my daughter, the things that she is most concerned about with Maeve are the things that she probably feels most insecure about, and worries most, and has struggled with uh, through her life. And
Yeah.
so, to backtrack, I was a bad kid. I was the youngest of four boys, who were pretty close in age, but I always had, I went into um, sixth grade with a high schooler's mentality and vocabulary and frame of reference, because I had older brothers.
Mhm.
And so I was always getting in trouble. I think through middle school, I mean, just nothing serious,
Yeah.
too serious, but I was in the assistant principal's office 3 times a week. My mom would get called constantly.
Wow.
I was just in trouble. I was in detention all the time. I was just trying to find my place in the world.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually, I had a brother who was the next closest in age. By the time I got to high school, I was a freshman. He was a senior, and he was king of the school. He was student body president. He was
Mm.
captain of the baseball team. Prom king. And going into his senior year, uh, he took me aside, and he said, basically, don't f this up for me. If you embarrass me, I'm gonna ruin your life, your life. But as long as you get your stuff together, um, you know, I'll look after you, and I'll show you some cool things. And so, my brother Chris, I followed him through high school, and then went to the same college that he was, and we
Yeah.
had that same relationship at Notre Dame as well.
Hmm.
The point is that I decided at that point, going into high school, um, I, I'm just no more. I had
Mhm.
appeared in front of a judge in juvenile court, at one point, and I just said, it's over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna concentrate on my future. I'm gonna do things in high school, to get ahead, and I'm gonna build a future. And that worked out.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I was mischievous as hell in high school, but I didn't actually get into too much trouble.
Yeah.
And did it stayed for the most part, and got into the school I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
Um, the point is that, um, in my mind, I think of myself as a bad kid, and by transference, I think of Clyde as a bad as a bad kid.
Mhm.
It's just, um, and he's not a bad kid. He's a wonderful kid. He's a great
Yeah.
kid. And I mean, I don't mean that he's a bad kid, but he's always, in my mind, I know what he's thinking. Like,
Yeah.
um,
You're recognizing
being exactly, being sneaky, or
yeah.
how's he going to twist that, and how is he going to turn this into a situation that's going to get him in trouble, or a sister in trouble,
Mhm.
or it's particularly with him antagonizing his sister sometimes.
Mhm.
So I just feel like, I feel like Serpico almost. I'm good at my job because I'm in your head, like I'm the undercover
Yeah,
cop because I've been there.
yeah.
And as a result, I am harder on Clyde than I am on his sister.
Mhm.
Part of it could be, the daddy daughter relationship, but uh, they could both do the same naughty thing, and Clyde will get more grief
Mhm.
than his sister, and it's because he's a mini me, and I recognize that,
Yeah.
and I feel connected. I mentioned, um, May's relationship with her mom. I think Elizabeth is similar, um, in that she sees the way that Maeve's brain sometimes works,
Mhm.
and sees herself. There are concerns about, eating issues and things like that.
Mhm.
And and then I also see Clyde getting away with murder with with Elizabeth. um, so there's the flip side where, and
Yeah.
it by no means does it boil down to, I love one more than the other. It's just how we process ourselves and our own, arrested development
Yeah.
issue, snapshot of ourselves as children, and how we transpose that onto, our kids. It's just really
Yeah.
interesting. And now I'm coming to the point. I realized that I never answered your original question of what am I proudest of. Um, and I said, well, that just happened. I just told him we were going to celebrate him today. Today was just him and I, a full day from, when I woke him up in the morning, and homeschooling,
Mhm.
and I actually did some food shopping, and just the normal day to day. But he
Mhm.
did everything right. He was
Cool.
cooperative. He said everything he was supposed to say. Lately, he's just really been, rebellious and pushing back, and
Yeah.
being a smart aleck, which is funny and fine, and I let that happen too. But today was just perfect. Like I looked at him and I was like, "What have you done with the real Clyde?" Like he was just angelic today, and it was something that we both needed, and
Yeah.
so he got a little extra good snack with lunch and things like that, and
That's great.
yeah. So I when you ask what has happened recently that you feel good about,
Mhm.
it's days like today that I think this is paying off.
Yeah.
Like I, there are times that I'm not proud of, the language I use in front of my kids, or I regret that, um, or I regret not being, as calm as I could have been.
Mhm.
But they see a human side of me, and I think that they get the structure, they get how much both Elizabeth and I care about them, why we have these rules, why we enforce things.
Mhm.
Um, and days like today where everything works, and I'm almost, guaranteeing that tomorrow's a shit day, but by saying this, but the days when things work, it
Right.
makes all the hard
Then
parts, all the hard
yeah.
parts.
I think, when you were talking about that, I was thinking like, I think that's a big deal as a parent to have those moments where you're like, I I get it. Like I'm not perfect either. Like I've been there. I get it. And that's I think that's really useful for kids. I think the construct, in the past was, well, the parents are such an authority. And then I think it went too far the other way where it was like your parent is your best friend. And and I feel like sometimes we've settled into a nice role now where we can say like, hey, I'm in charge, but I will tell you that I have my faults too, and it's okay to talk about those. And and I think it is tough in the parenting wise, like it's kind of hard to have kids because you have these clones of yourself, or like that sort of embody things like, what do they always say, like, what you hate in others is what you hate about yourself, or something like, but it's
You're
not so
faced with
much.
your own neuroses 24/7. You're
Yeah,
dealing with your shit.
exactly. Because I think, sometimes I look at Maria and I think, oh, she's, like, I see that aspect of me where she's like, she wants everything to be okay and she wants to please everyone and do everything right. And like, make sure everyone's happy. And then I also see parts of myself in Bridget where it's like, she tells me all the time, she's like, my brain never turns off. And I'm like, I get that. I get that. Like, that's why I don't sleep at night. Like, it's so hard to have your brain turn off. Like, I understand how that works. So we have this microcosm
Exactly.
yourself running around and you're like, oh, like, it's like looking at a bad funhouse mirror sometimes. Like,
I just I just went off on my rant about how much our kids are mirrors of our own baggage, but at the same time, um, there's this overwhelm. Like, I say, Clyde, I see so much of myself in him. I also see a lot of myself in Maeve, and I see a lot of
mhm,
my ex in Clyde, and both you. It's almost like with every generation, the end product is getting better. Like,
yeah, maybe we're a little more diluted. Like,
yeah,
or yeah, so,
they're hybrids, and
yeah,
yeah, it's phasing out the poison and
yeah.
promoting the good stuff. But yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and it's a trip. And I think that um, when part of being human with your kids and leveling, um, to me, I've always believed in that. Um, I'd rather have my kids think of me less as, and this is going to sound hippy dippy, less as a dad and more of just a complex relationship in their life that they have to manage.
Hmm,
And
mhm,
it'll have one dynamic when Clyde's 10 years old, and it'll have a different dynamic
yeah,
when he's 15 and 25 and 35. And
mhm,
throughout his life, he and I will have this relationship that changes and grows and has ups and downs. Um,
mhm,
but I talked to other parents, and everyone is so scared about the socialization aspect that our kids are losing by not
mm,
being in school this year. And I that's a valid fear, and but I'm not that worried about it with my kids because a they have my favorite relationship that I had that I feel was what was integral to the man I became, which was a sibling
mhm,
relationship.
mhm,
And they are real close, and they fight like cats and dogs, but they're also each other's best friends, and I love
yeah,
that. But also, they have these e- e- even in the pandemic, they've had these very close, intense relationships with both of their parents and a handful of people in our COVID pod. And they do great. They
yeah,
really do great, and they are also in touch with when they're not doing great. And so Maeve
yeah,
lately, especially when it's the three of us, Maeve, Clyde, and I think Maeve sometimes feels like the odd girl out, and she'll
mm,
come up to me and say, "Hey, can I call Aunt Joy or my
mm,
mom?" And she just wants to have a girl chat.
yeah.
And Clyde and I are watching football or making fart jokes or something, and I'm like, absolutely, Maeve, get out of here, take my phone, go in the other room, and you get the interaction and the emotional, uh, uh, affirmation that you need. And
Yeah.
Clyde does what he needs to do, and it's great to see, um, that emotional intelligence grow and increase. And
Yeah,
that's
to
really
know
cool.
what helps them. I do feel like this generation of kids, especially the kids our age, or the ages that our kids are, this is going to be, I think, one of the most flexible thinking and um kind of resilient groups of people to come around. I mean, there's all the different, Gen X and Gen Y and stuff, uh, and there's been a lot of people being spoiled throughout the years or whatever, and watching them go through this, I've seen these changes where there is such strength in these kids, like, and at times, I mean, it sucks and they're upset and it's hard. And because as a parent, you can't be like, well, when we went through this, you can't say that because you're like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
and when you were saying before about like, kind of when they come to you and you're kind of like, I don't know, like that's what I feel like all I do lately is say, I don't know. And I, I'm not sure. And I hope. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's my constant like sentence structure a lot of times is like, well,
I think that's great.
we
That's
just,
Yeah.
I don't know either. So we're just gonna, what's on the docket for today, and we're gonna get through today and then just keep
That's right.
going.
Baby steps.
Yeah. But I do feel like these kids are gonna be like very flexible thinkers, and they're probably going to be very thankful for anything positive that happens after this.
It reminds me, when you and I were kids, our grandparents mostly came out of the Depression, and
Right.
that was always a source of of a big difference from a kid in the mid '70s, to someone who grew up in the '20s. You just couldn't fathom that, and so our kids are basically growing up in the closest thing that we've had to the Great Depression, and it's like the Depression on steroids. It's gonna be a weird hybrid of
Yeah.
endurance and durability. And um, I think one of the other things one of the other silver linings, that I see my kids doing, and something that I'm promoting with them, um, especially as the boredom sets in. Um, you're the master of your own destiny. If
Right.
you're bored, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Hmm.
Figure it out. I'll
Yeah.
support you in any hobby you want to do. But not, things aren't going to be spoon fed. And no,
Hmm.
you can't turn on the TV. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the creative thought is a huge piece of this. Like, I'm always telling, they're probably tired of me saying this, but my mom said once when I was a kid, like, I said something about, complained about something, and she goes, well, what's the workaround? And I was like, that's kind of been my mantra during everything that we've gone through this year, is kind of like, well, what's the workaround? Like, can't do
that
this. So what's the workaround? Figure it out. Like,
I've got to end with this joke, and I can't remember if I told you it or not, but it's perfect, for this. And just to back, I did tell you this, but we'll get it in this interview. Um, a couple weeks ago, we had a Halloween party that we were going to go to. May with her best friend. They're in our COVID pod.
uh-huh.
May was so excited. Her world was revolving around this. She had been talking about it for 10 days, and was so excited. In the afternoon that we were going to go, Clyde started showing symptoms, and we had to go into a walk-in
Mhm.
clinic to get COVID tested. And I had to tell
Mhm.
Maeve that no, we can't go to the party.
Yeah.
Luckily, after we got the results back, just a couple days later, we rescheduled and the kids got to go to the party, so it was great.
Awesome.
But Maeve was distraught, and on the way to the COVID test, she's practically bawling and feeling sorry for herself, and rightly so. And she said, "This stinks, this stinks," and I was like, "I know, this does stink. You're allowed to say that." And then so I let her, be pitiful for a few minutes, and then I said, "Maeve, you remember what I told you? What we should do when life gives us lemons?" And she was completely serious, and she said, "We squeeze them on lobster." And I've been laughing about that for 3 days. I was like, exactly. You go, girl. That is exactly what you should do when life gives.
So much better than lemonade.
No one needs lemonade. When life gives you lemons, you deserve a lobster. So that was perfect.
Tell Maeve that's going to be my mantra from now on.
I will never use that cliche again without thinking.
I love her. That is absolutely awesome. Thanks, Dono.
Yeah, should we wrap that up? Do you want to stop recording? I wanted to ask you one other question.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Hang on.
No problem.
Thanks.